Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About Plant Medicine, Cannabis, Psychedelics, and Pharmaceutics. You guys see, I am already stumbling on my word today. I have a really, really special guest. I am so excited, so stoked to have him, but we're not going to go to Patrick yet. So you guys, welcome to the show. Let's Talk Plant Medicine, Cannabis, Psychedelics, and Pharmaceutics with Dr. Ho. So glad you guys are here with me today. I am very, very appreciative of that. Without you guys being there every week, there's no way we can make this happen. So before we bring in our guest today, like I said, I am very, very honored to have him on the show. You guys know what's up, of course. We got to do the good house cleaning, our usual. So what is a good house cleaning? You all know this show is for educational purpose and should not be taken as medical advice. Consult with your doctor for all your medical needs. Do not start or stop any medicine without talking to your doctor. Having said that, okay, the other good house cleaning we have to do, we got to pay our bills. We got to pay our bills. So this show, the sponsor, I first of all want to say thank you to you out there that are supporting us. Without you guys, we are unable to do this. And I'm talking about our Patreon group. Those of you that have joined Health Equals Wealth members, you are indirectly supporting this show. And of course, you subscriber on Apple Podcast, thank you so much for doing what you do. Other than that, we have WCI Health is the main sponsor of this show. They are your alternative health and wellness company. They have various master classes, cannabis as medicine master classes, and they are also the makers of glows, beauty, and CBD hemp-based products. So go check out all their good stuff on their website, wci-health.com. And of course, if you are yet to join our Clubhouse group, Cannabis Psychedelic Club, you need to go do that. Good stuff is in the profile, so go check it out at WCI Health 19. Having said that, I'm not going to be wasting time today. We got so much to cover. I want to say thank you so much, David. Help me to welcome David Ironwood to the show. David, oh my goodness, Patrick. Patrick Ironwood is with us today. Thank you, Patrick.
I can be David today.
Yeah, I was supposed to have David Capella on the show as well. So we had to reschedule for David. I guess that's where this Mr. Boy is so good. Patrick, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here today.
It is really good. This is actually the first time I've done a podcast, a recorded Zoom call. I've done Zoom some and had some really great experiences on Zoom. So this is great to feel like it's going out to more people. So is this also live or is this recorded and then moved out?
No, it's not live, but it's recorded and we're going to put it on our YouTube channel.
Super.
So
that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, we just started our YouTube channel for the show. So this is another way of showing the other side that we have to our audience out there. That is amazing. Patrick, tell us a little bit about yourself. Folks, first of all, before I even allow Patrick to say anything, if you are looking for Joseph, he should have been named Joseph. This man is a man with a coat of many colors. There is no way we can describe him. He is a star monkey. He is a popular evolutionarist. He's a humanist. It's everything in this little body. And I'm so glad to have him. I can't even do justice to his background. So I'm going to let him come in and talk to us about himself. Patrick, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like I said, you are a man of many colors. Talk to us, Patrick.
Yeah, I think because I have a lot of different places we could go, I want to go ahead and just jump right into what I've lately been really passionate about, because it's psychoactive plants, molecules, and just a psychedelic life, really.
Yeah, that is
Because,
good, Patrick. But our audience would still like to know. I mean, I need to hear about a little bit about the hobo
okay,
life, about all those cool stuff living in the
okay,
wild. Like
sure.
he is amazing. He has lived in the grid, like the grid, literally no electricity, no nothing.
Yeah.
Very few people can pull that out. So I know our audience want to hear all that good juicy part first. Tell us
Okay,
about your background. Where were you
sure.
born and stuff?
Well, I was actually conceived in Nigeria.
Are you kidding me now?
Uh-huh.
Come on now. No.
My parents were Peace Corps volunteers.
Are you
And then
serious?
they came back here, and I was born in Washington, D.C.
Oh,
And then somewhere around then, my granddad just happened to get some land in Tennessee, and my mom and dad were decided they wanted to try to farm on it, like not just farm, like homestead. And back then, that was like in the late 60s, early 70s, and no one was doing that at all. And so I consider myself a child of the Whole Earth Journal, that catalog that had books in it. And that was kind of like the first internet. It was the place that people first had access to how to do the things themselves. If their grandparents and their parents hadn't taught them, then this journal, the Whole Earth Journal, the Whole Earth Catalog is what it was called. But that book really changed a lot of people's lives, and my parents were some of them. And it drastically changed my life, because I fell into a life where of homesteading from when I was 5 years old. We had no electricity from 5 until 19. And in 19, I went to college and installed our first solar electric panels. Um, uh, Everything that was store bought was bad. We did everything we could ourselves, and spent almost all our time in the woods, in the wilderness. So I grew up in that form, around a lot of plant medicines and things like that. My parents weren't really hippies. They weren't into drugs at all. They thought that that type of experience could be found on your own. And they were also, if there was a serious injury or something, we did go to the doctor. So they weren't religious either. There was nothing there either. I got to sort of develop my own forms of spirit, I suppose. I consider myself somewhat of a pantheist, I suppose, or a post-theist, at least, because I was raised without religion. So I don't really have I'm not an atheist, because I never had a God to not believe in.
Yeah.
But I also find religion fascinating, and all my theist and religious friends and spiritual friends, I love that they find energy in those places. And I just find that the entire universe is alive and speaking all the time. And if I can tune in, I can understand sometimes what the universe is telling me. And that's when I actually make my best decisions. And I make lots of poor decisions because I'm not really paying attention to the world around me. So in that sense of phenomenology is a concept I like a lot. And that's a lot of our indigenous ancestors, all they knew is the world around them, and it spoke through them and to them. And for me, phenomenology, because I've lived in the same place for 50 years, I do feel a connection to the landscape, to the plants, to the landform, to the weather. And all those things help me with my decisions as a permaculturalist, when I'm trying to decide to plant a tree, or to build a path somewhere, or to turn a path off because I feel like it's eroding, or to cut a tree down, because I also do cut trees down sometimes. Because when I cut a tree down, I harvest sunlight and starlight. At night, I can see more stars when that tree's not there. And during the day, more light comes in. And then all of a sudden, the whole area where the tree was, all these other plants in the forest are coming up. And sometimes I choose to plant things there and harvest that sunlight through agriculture. But for the most part, I really have moved more and more away from agriculture, because it's so labor intensive and so unnatural feeling. And I love to every day I try to eat something wild that I find in the forest. And I've been this last few weeks, there's been a lot of milky indigo mushrooms, which are one of these amazing blue mushroom. Actually, I just posted some on Instagram because it's such a beautiful blue color. It looks like I altered the color scheme even, but I didn't tamper with it at all. It's totally it's really that color. But it's not a psilocybin mushroom, because those are famous for being blue also, the psilocybin bruising blue. And these are not psychoactive.
Yeah.
These are just
That is
it's like
awesome.
yeah. So yeah, so that's a little bit about my background. But believe me, I've got a lot of my sort of unusualness in that department. I also we had intentional community here on this land for 25 years, so I have a lot of intentional community experience, which involves a lot of people work, working in circles with just coordinating people around things, educating, and that type of thing. I've also done a lot in the festival circuit of particularly music. And also just teaching, small group teaching and activism from the 80s. I've been doing environmental, social justice, activism of all sorts of different types.
All that
So I've
in
moved.
itself is of some people's totality of their life, and we haven't even been able to. This is just like a tip of the iceberg for you. That is amazing. That is, folks. I was telling you guys that Patrick is a coat of many colors. I mean, we've heard of panties, we have of farmer soft top. I mean, we have heard all kind of terms that you guys this is a mind blowing when you hang around this amazing man. Before we go on, I'm sure our audience would like to know all that. With all those stuff, be you being a artsy person, a nature person, did you have any formal education? Where did you go to school?
Yes. Okay. So I went to I went to like elementary school a couple times because it was like free daycare. But then my parents actually ended up pulling me out because it was a very rural community that was well, they've been living in Africa. And the area we were living was a very, I don't know what you call it, a white neighborhood. Like and I think they felt that it wasn't maybe a good influence on me and my brother. Which we would have figured out on our own. Believe me, we knew that racism is garbage. But from really early on, I got a very like anti-racist. I think they call it unfucked. I was unfucked, involving that. My mom's a feminist, and so that was something that was really helpful. So I didn't have that. I never had any of those issues, but I ended up going to junior high and high school here in rural Tennessee, and was exposed to a lot of things that were damaging, I think, to a lot of other people. But I actually think that for me, it just hardened my convictions that the world there was a lot of change that needed to happen. And it's one of the reasons I became an activist, was because I recognized how unjust the entire planet is. And I thought that I would go to college and become like a professional person doing world development. Professional type of development work, whatever that means. And so I actually went to college. Because it was for free back then, for people without money. I could just go. It was the state school here in Tennessee, and Knoxville was free. So I went and I got a degree in what was then called third world research and development, but that is no longer a used term. It would just be considered like international development type work. But while I was getting that degree, I realized that the problem was not over there. The problem was other systems of power that exist in the world. And so I actually decided, instead of going somewhere else to try to tell people how to do things, is that I would stay here and try to learn how to do things myself and teach other people here in this country to live a lighter impact life. So we just started educating, teaching, and living this sort of example life off the grid. Organic gardening, limited solar power, but mostly efficiency, DIY everything, hand tools. And it wasn't really dogmatic exactly. It was just the way we lived already. So it was very easy. And at that time, though, back in the 80s and early 90s, there was almost no young people doing that kind of thing. So as soon as people found out about us, which back then it was through the Federation for Intentional Community, we were in their book. Our community was called Moonshadow at the time. We started a nonprofit called the Sequatchie Valley Institute, which still exists, but since COVID has done very little, we just have hiking trails and things like that. But people can come here and camp and things. It's a great place actually to have like a socially isolated experience. So for people that are trying to avoid other people, come see us. And we have a little gallery because my day job is as an artist. So I do my day job from here. So we do have some income. My mom also is an artist. She does ceramics, and I do sacred art objects from the future, time traveler and all that kind of thing. But yeah, so there's all these little details that kind of
with a coat of many colors, man.
So I in my high school here in rural Tennessee, though, there was this book in the library called Plants of the Gods, and it was by Richard Evan Schultze, and he was one of the earliest ethnobotanists in the Western world. I mean, I think in a way, all shamanic traditions and indigenous healers, they're all ethnobotanists, really.
Mhm.
That's what they do. But traditionally it was something that was done with the people, in your area, with the plants and minerals in your area. And now the world has become so spread out, and people are all distracted, and in so many different ways, that indigenous society is not what most people are living in now. Most people are living lifestyles where they're separated from who might be the person, like the local shaman or local healer. That person just doesn't exist in most people's lives now. So when I read that book, it was about all these different ways traditionally that all these plants and mushrooms and even animals sometimes were used by indigenous people traditionally for healing. And the form of healing was really what might be called magical thinking now. And it was like a form of spirituality. And since I didn't have a formal spirituality for myself, I actually started to believe in that form of spirituality. I started thinking that the plants, that these magical plants actually had intelligence within them and abilities to heal. So
Yeah.
I was about 16 years old then. So I'm 54 now. So for a good percentage of my life, I've actually been really deeply believe that the nature itself actually can communicate with us, and it can heal us to a certain degree. I mean, it's not going to put your leg on if you cut it off. But it can make you feel better about it, though.
Definitely. I was born in Nigeria myself, so that's probably part of why we've always been click from the beginning. And where Africa general, and your parents, they were there for a while, and all this. In a way, you got that spirit in you from the beginning. So what I was trying to say is that growing up in that part of the world, we see what you will call the shamanic folks. We call them babalawo. In my lab, I was from the southern part of the country, so they speak Yoruba. So we call them babalawo. Some people, but they also have the kind of a mini god with different, like the Ogun, Osun, Oya, and all those in Yoruba. So I grew up seeing those shamanic men and women speak to the plants. See, I know you've been in the room when I talk about using mango leaves and the bark for malaria and stuff. So basic, they consider malaria as basic in a way. Those type of ailments, you can just get regular your mango leaf, your lemongrass, the bark, and put kind of a concoction, put it together, and you take it and you're fine. But there are some ailments that they actually have to talk to the plant itself. They have to talk to the spirit of the plant to tell them what do we need to put together. So I can see where that comes into it. And we were also going into the shamanic religion, shamanic practice. Talk to us about when you talk about shamans, what definitely folks that comes to mind is the psychedelics. Talk to us, Patrick, about that journey, psychedelic. I know you've done many journeys. Talk to us. Pick wherever you want to start from.
Okay. Well,
maybe like a general overview of psychedelics. How did you get into the psychedelic, and what type of plants are they?
So after reading that book, I actually didn't start doing drugs. Many of my classmates in high school, smoked marijuana and things like that, and I just didn't. I was a very straight edge right up to college, and then in college I got kind of connected in with like the kind of Grateful Dead kind of scene and that kind of thing. And my friends were tripping on LSD and mushrooms and things like that. But I wanted to actually wait, and I wanted to grow my own mushrooms. That was the plan. And I didn't think I would ever do LSD because it was, a synthetic. And I was like, oh, no, I want to do the natural thing. But at a certain point, I think I was 22, 1988, I tried mushrooms for the first time. And I actually thought I did 3.5 grams of mushrooms. And
Whoa, for the first time?
Well, yeah, that was what I did. Actually, it was
Goodness.
the night before I'd eaten a cap, and I really liked it. It was just like, well, that was great. I really enjoyed the tiny little, it wasn't a microdose because I could feel it, but I was just out in the parking lot. I think the Dylan was playing at the show, and I wasn't going to that show. And the next day was Grateful Dead. The morning I woke up.
Dylan is your brother.
I was there with my brother. I woke up and I ate 3.5 grams of mushrooms. Whoa. And I had another quarter in my pocket. 7 more grams
for the first time.
And while standing in line, I just decided, I just kept eating them. I actually liked the way they tasted, because I don't know. And so I ended up doing 10 grams of mushrooms for the first time.
For the first time.
Yeah, that was my first trip. And I had not, and I'd experimented with a few other little things. I'd tried nutmeg, which made me very sick. And I'd done cannabis enough times at that point, and it was I definitely, that really, cannabis was probably my first like real altered state. But I also didn't treat it casually. It was one that I actually started finding myself not enjoying my cannabis experiences, because I would sit with a circle of people would pass the bowl around, and I would smoke it, and then I would feel kind of paranoid and very sheepish. I would wish that I hadn't said things that I'd said. And at a certain point, it took me a while, but I started not using cannabis when it was offered to me. And I started only doing it when I was completely ready, often by myself. And I developed my own relationship with that plant like that. And also my difficulty with that, I think, was social at first. And after about 25 years, maybe, of using that plant on my own, I now actually enjoy being social and high on cannabis also, to a certain degree.
I think, but cannabis, it probably just wanted to have that special relationship with you, really.
Really,
and
it's really special.
You know that this is not a play. I'm not here to play. I am here to actually lead you and guide you. I think that's might be what is going on there.
I know you share about cannabis a lot, and I really think that it is of all, I'm glad that it's leading the way for the normalization of psychedelics. Even though it's not a classic psychedelic, I think that it is so incredibly mind altering. It is so incredibly safe, and it's now fairly easy to access high quality cannabis. There's so many different ways to take it, from edibles to vaping to traditionally smoking it. I mostly vape. I also like edibles. I like the way edibles come on very slowly. You don't even know it's happened. And then all of a sudden, what's that feeling? And then it's like, oh, it's that. And then it lasts a really nice long time. So I really loved my relationship with that. And I feel like it's been a great teacher for me. And it's, I've been humbled by it at times, but for the most part, after years of exploration, I've learned how to use it. And also as an admixture to any of the other psychedelics, there's definitely at least for me, there's the wrong time to add cannabis. So I almost never will do a tryptamine, LSD, or mushrooms. I'll almost never do those if I'm high. And if I'm going to get high on cannabis, I will wait towards the end of the trip, and then I'll add that. And
what do you say to the folks that say, okay, when they are going through the regular psychedelic experience, and they say, oh, I also need to add cannabis to it? What do you say to those school of thought?
Okay, so I think that people are first, especially if they're first experimenting, go low and go slow. Start with the lowest effective dose of whatever it is you're trying, and do that. I would suggest not mixing anything else in with your first LSD or mushroom trip or MDMA, whatever. I mean, there's so many different ones to talk about that each one is at least a day-long discussion. And
you were telling us about how you the first psychedelic experience that you had, you took 10 grams. How did you feel? 10 grams. That is more than a heroic dose.
I mean, it's got its own story. It didn't kick in till the Grateful Dead was already playing. So it was at this big outdoor, it was a grassy area, and there was thousands of people just on the grass on this sort of slope sloping down, and the band was up in the front. And I'd seen them before, maybe 10 times before. I wasn't like an official deadhead, but it was a really good environment. Like, it was really sweet people, you know, and a lot of crafts people there, and artists, and very diverse. At least for back in the 80s, it felt diverse. I mean, it really did attract excellent people.
Different.
And I actually decided that this is a cautionary tale. I decided that I needed to use this the energy of all of the people. I felt like it needed to be directed towards something other than music. I thought it needed to be directed towards world peace. So I thought that I would try to get everybody's attention. And it was very like, it was classic. It was such a Jesus kind of trip, because I wanted to get everyone's attention and get everyone to like promise to try to like make world peace happen as soon as possible.
Whoa.
So I like was looking around for some way to like get everyone's attention. That was my plan. I was like obsessed with it. And I took off all my clothes and gave them away.
Whoa.
And like my beads and all my stuff. I had nothing. And my brother was walking behind me, being like, he's going to want this later. taking my clothes back from the people.
Has he tried any of the psychedelic then?
He was also on mushrooms, but a much smaller dose.
Oh my goodness. How old were you guys then?
I was 22 and he would have been 19 or 20.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was our first time for both of us. And then the next week we drove from there to Canada, because this was up in Wisconsin. And we drove across the border, got pulled over, and it turned out I thought drugs were legal in Canada. I was that naive. I always thought like America was evil and Canada, like everything was okay.
Yeah, like good.
And I got in so much trouble, and probably because, I don't know, I only got in so much trouble. I still went to jail. But so I immediately tripped for the first time, went to jail, lost my car for a bit. We got it back. And then they took all of our drugs except for a cassette tape. Back then it was cassette tapes. And we had a cassette tape stuffed full of mushrooms.
Oh.
And it was in like the box with all the other cassettes.
Yeah.
Pretty good hiding place, unless they were, they looked through the engine and stuff first before they even found like our weed was like on the front seat. We did not even try to hide it. And there's actually a lot of other sort of, that story went pretty deep. But regardless, we took the mushrooms on into Canada when they released us, and we went to the National Gallery in Ottawa, which is an art museum. And we ate the mushrooms there. And that's actually was the largest change in my like reality that I ever had, was being around art from all over the world on psychedelics, in this contained place, because the museum was like mostly indoors and it was all lit by like skylights and things like that. And just, it was such an amazing, that's the trip that I would want to repeat. Of all of the thousands of different things that I've done and amazing people that I've been with, that experience with the art and in this contained place, there was this sense of like feeling, it wasn't art, it felt more real than anything had ever been before, and yet totally, artificial is the wrong word, it just felt like another world. It felt like another world, because it was, in my mind, my whatever receptor sites were experiencing reality in a way that they never had before. I mean, I guess they kind of had the week before, but on 10 grams, I'm not really sure I even remember what happened exactly. You know what I mean? Like, it was just so, whoa, I was so far out there.
That will be unheard of these days. Even the map studies, I don't even think they are going anywhere around that at all. Yeah.
But that second, it was 3.5 grams that we did at the art museum. And that was a little high for a museum dose for a beginner. But I think that for people that are comfortable being in public a little bit and that want to experiment with lower dose tryptamines, like between 1 and 2 grams, that museums are an excellent place to really gain a whole new understanding into all sorts of aspects of reality, especially like fine art, and seeing like the craft idea and the mind of the artist.
Especially somebody like you that is into arts and stuff, it's like a new meaning to what you're seeing. How long does it last? How many does it last? Like days? How did you feel after that experience?
Um, well, I mean, the 10 gram experience, I mean, it was a day trip, and I feel like it went into the night, but I don't remember the details. I have journaled about it somewhere, but my guess is I got a good night's sleep. I don't remember having any kind of hangover. If anything, one of the nice things that's classic about mushrooms, especially if you keep them simple without too many other things added, is that the afterglow the next day, which now is called integration, the days after tripping, has a really nice feeling. And while with LSD, often the afterglow is kind of exhausting the next day, like your mind just feels worn out, and it takes a few days to have like full cerebral functioning again. And that's a fantastic thing about mushrooms, though, is the next day usually is really amazing.
I
Because
kind of like.
most of my mushroom trips have been between 1 and 3.5 grams, and then I've also been so brave or foolish to integrate some MAO inhibitors into that also, but that's stuff that no one do that without researching it a lot. It's also not as.
Can you expatiate on that for our
Okay.
audience? Maybe because we try, it's just like the club. We try to break it down a little bit today. Talk to us about that.
Okay, so there's many different types of mind-altering plants and molecules, but one entire branch are tryptamines, and that's why they call it tripping. And that's because they're the building blocks are made from tryptophan, which is an amino acid, I believe.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
so that amino acid is turned into these alkaloids, which the psilocybin, DMT, and LSD. And those three, there's others, but let's just stick with the classics. Those three, and really any tryptamine, if you take a tryptamine orally with this thing called a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, an MAOI, if you take those two together, it makes them way stronger, but not just more potent. It's the way they go through your brain, into your brain. There's this other sort of pattern that it creates. And it's really advanced work. Like people talk about big dosing, macro dosing being advanced. And I do think that that's advanced in its own way, but you're still getting just more of the same thing. But when you open up those receptor sites with MAO inhibitors, it really changes things. And that's when you really do need a professional help often. And that's why ayahuasca is my suggested method for people to first experiment with that, because ayahuasca, ideally you will be doing it with a trained professional, a curandero or a shaman, whatever they want to call themselves, but someone that works with ayahuasca and knows how to hold people. Because if you're going to have a hard time, a bad trip, and if you have having a bad trip and a tryptamine, you can learn a lot from it. They aren't really bad trips. They're just trips that you need to spend more time thinking about afterwards sometimes and debrief a little. But if you add MAO inhibitors to that and you have a bad trip with tryptamines, if you had a bad tryptamine trip with MAO inhibitors, that's some serious psychic damage that you can have. So it's really good, really important to have someone that can hold you during the trip. Now, you may want help afterwards too. But anyway, so I've experimented with that also as part of my personal path. Sometimes too.
Yeah, in your traditional, as a clinician, in your traditional conventional medicine, that's why we have to be very particular about your antidepressant, your SSRIs.
Yes.
Because see, these are all those compounds, they are monoamine. And when you bring the inhibitor to the enzyme that is supposed to break them down, see, the oxidase is the enzyme that breaks them down. So when you bring an inhibitor, folks, inhibitor just prevent it from being broken down. So you have your serotonin from your shroom or whatever agents you are using in your body is supposed to be broken down by the enzymes, but this compound that you are bringing in is preventing it from being broken down. That's like a flush.
Yeah.
So that is big deal. It could result in serotonin syndrome, which are some of the effects that Patrick was describing.
Yeah.
Patrick, the other question I want to ask us: what is your favorite thinking? What is your take on? They are beginning to put together agent to try to take the mysticism out of the psychedelics, because some people are not really able to deal with the trip itself, the psychedelic experience, the hallucinogenic part of it. In an agent like Iboga, especially with the cardiac related issues, that we have to be careful, and that will be at a very high dose. So there are works out there that big farmers, they are beginning to look into, to try to take the mysticism out of it, that stuff that makes it like magic. Maybe that will resolve some of the potential side effects that we might see. What are your take on that?
I actually think it's a good idea. I think that if science wants to, take apart and reinvent some of these chemicals, that's great. And then there's just more new molecules and more exploration into it. So I just think the more science, the better. But I think it would be really good if people knew that there were other options. And another part, because as psychedelics become naturalized and normalized in society, I'm not really sure everyone needs to have to go through the effort that the psychedelic community has to learn how to use these medicines. So if there's easier ways to do them, because some of the difficulty is taken out, I think that if that's how people choose to do it, that's great. But I think that there'll be plenty of people who would want to keep it natural, even if it's molecule, and do like the classic form. I mean, MDMA is a good example of that. How MDMA, which is also known as ecstasy and atom, that molecule does not exist in nature, so it's not natural, but it's very easy to make, not by novice, but I mean, it's not expensive to make, so it's not going to cost much to have it around, and that people have been using it in the subculture for like 50 years, and although you can get in trouble with that substance because in a high dose it can lead to death, but for people that are do a little research, people have been self-dosing on that without a prescription, and it's actually really worked. Now, one of the reasons people don't get addicted to it is because the day after, and sometimes like the week after doing MDMA, is pretty rough. It's really, so there's a few people that just stay on it, but those are the people that get in trouble. But most people, they do it and then they don't need to do it again for months or maybe ever again. So a lot of the psychedelics are like that. They're just, all the tryptamines are like that. You don't just do a trip and then be like, oh, that was great, I want to be like that forever. No, most people have their trip and then it wears off. And then they go into this period that's called integration. And MDMA is a great example of that because the integration often doesn't feel that great. So if you could create an MDMA that had an integration that wasn't difficult, I'm not sure that the medicine would be working as well. So I'm kind of agreeing with myself and disagreeing at the same time. I contradict myself. I contradict myself. I'm going to do that because I know how deep the well is, and all of these things, there's definitely all sorts of different ways to look at all of this stuff. Like it's always contradictory information in the psychedelic world. It's just like that.
Yeah, it's a two side to a coin.
There is.
Yeah, it's really a two, because for me, look at the mysticism that's like, okay, yeah, I see both sides. Then there are the side that say, what about the indigenous folks? But at the same time, it's not going to be visible to take everybody that is having issue, one ailment or the other. We all take a trip to Africa or to Peru or Costa Rica or wherever we decide the plant is, So we're going to have to walk through that. But at the same time, we just still have to be respectful of the people that have made this plant their life. And it's a two coin, and we just have to, I'm always a little bit careful because I don't want a situation where we find ourselves in the opioid terrain again. All those modification of those agents, it can lead to a stronger effect. One of those effect is seen in Opana ER. It has to be taken off the market. That was how strong that particular agent is. So a little modification of this thing can go a long way. Yeah,
exactly. Well,
so,
I mean,
yeah. Before we let you go, Patrick, talk to us. Talk to us. We cannot just have you one time. There's so much we didn't even get to kratom. We didn't
Yeah.
even get to salvia. I mean, LED, all kind of stuff. We haven't even started again. I hope so. Before we let you go, we're gonna be bringing Patrick back for sure. But before we let him go, talk to us. There's lots of our audience out there they are thinking and taking this journey. What type of advice? First of all, what are the areas that people are using the potential to help people? One. Second of all, what are your advice for folks that are considering going this route?
Okay, I'm going to give you two acronyms. The first one is KYM, Kim, and it's Know Your Medicine. So whatever if you think you want to experiment with anything, and this could even be true with marijuana, because nowadays it could be laced with fentanyl. You just don't know. So know what you've got first by knowing where you're getting it from and trusting that source. And if you're not sure for sure, do a really low dose, like 1/10 what you imagine your dose is going to be of whatever it is. And in that sense, get to know your medicine. And that's based on, and I'm going to give you another acronym for that. I call it LED, and that's the lowest effective dose. So start super low with such a small amount that you don't think it's going to do anything. And then, wait a day or two. Don't, some things people keep redose. Most people get in trouble through redosing in any other way other than like cars and other stupid things like that. But I mean, again, so knowing your medicine, and then really keeping that lowest effective dose at first till you get to know the medicine. And then after that, it's all about set and setting. Set and setting is really worth, look it up. Set and setting is, the set is who you are at the time, what's going on in your life, how's your love life, how's your physical health, how's your psychology, what other meds are you on, know yourself. And that's the setting. And then the other part is that's the set, is you. And then there's the setting. That's where you're at. That's if you're in your apartment or out in your woods. If there's other people involved in your trip, the social dynamics of group tripping, especially in friend groups, that's actually my favorite form, where I think people basically, instead of having to have like a clinician or having to go all the way to Peru or to Africa, but if groups of friends can get together and really hold a space together as a group, I think that form of like local community is where most of the work can get done. Now, there's definitely things like ayahuasca, for instance, which I would suggest probably don't start that out in a friend group unless someone has really, really been involved in that medicine. But I think that really the friend group is really, really important, and which can also extend to family, of course. And that family members, and what you'll find is that experience together with a friend group can really bond a group of people, and also family. It can really change your relationships with family. A lot of these medicines are things that people that have had all kinds of like even ancestral multi-generational family problems are being solved through the use of psychedelics. And on a personal level and on entire family levels, and in friend groups also, with exes, with your children. Ray, I would actually love to talk about raising children with psychedelics being naturalized also, because I think that the parents not sharing with their children about their because so many people now particularly use cannabis, that that it's fine to be drunk around your children, but you have to hide that if you're high or if you're tripping. And I think that that's too bad, because I think that that kind of honesty in the family unit is really healthy, and that these medicines also can do amazing personal social change. It's just very clear. It's not only my personal experience. And again, although I am mostly a solitary practitioner, I have sort of been around a lot of other people doing these things and sort of been there for them. Again, I do not consider myself a shaman. I do practice a lot of things that a shaman might do, but I'm more of an ethnobotanist, a pharmacologist, and a witness. Like, I'm really a witness. Like I'll just sort of be there. It's different than coaching. know if I don't want to have that much responsibility, but I've witnessed a lot of people do these things. So, and by doing that, I've experienced a lot of the nuances of how to maybe encourage people to do it in a way that's most effective. Because and again, it's not for everyone. Again, that's where again, if you're, a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, new medicines, want to try them all. But then again, just take your time, because there are at least 50 different amazing mind altering substances out there. And there's also numerous ways to achieve altered states that don't involve any chemicals at all. Different forms of breathing, different forms of fasting, different forms of sensory deprivation, wilderness experiences, just, sitting silently with your friends on a park bench. You can totally find nirvana there also.
Those are, we cannot fit. That's why I say we can fit his appearance on the show to one episode. That is just gonna be trying to do too much. Patrick, do you work you are kind of somebody that learned from experience, and a lot of people even put more values. There's more values in lived experience. That's what part of, coupled with your pharmacological background and all your formal education and stuff. So that is really, really a powerful part of what I do, is bringing my clinical background as well as my lived growing up in the African community where we use this herbal medicine. Those are really experience that not everybody have it. Fortunately for some of us, like me and you, it is what it is. We all have our life experience. So how do people work with you? Do you work with people one-on-one? Do you grow your own product? How does that work? And if you don't want to talk about that, that is also fine.
Oh no, the things that are legal, I've grown myself. The chacruna plant for ayahuasca, which I've not used because I just grow it. And the Salvia divinorum, I actually have been one of the people that's shared that plant a lot. I've never sold it. It just didn't feel right to me, but I don't mind if people do. Again, it's whatever the people do. For me, I've just that's just one of my services. San Pedro cactus, of course. Wachuma is another one that I've been really involved in growing. And I sort of, about 10 years ago, I segued away from my cultivation agricultural work. And now I just have a tiny little sample of things that I like to keep alive. But I really stepped away from that. As far as other people are concerned, I'm mostly a solitary practitioner, and I have a few friends that periodically we decide to get together and, experiment with something, or do, continue to explore, or we find something new. I do suspect that the future is going to make it more and more possible for groups of us to get together intentionally in places like psychedelic parks, places that are perhaps even protected or separated from the public to a certain degree. And there's safe places for people to have these experiences together. So actually, it's one of my main things I'm the most excited about right now, is being involved in a way to start to create a psychedelic safe places all over the world. Yeah, not only that they're legal, which is important, very important.
Definitely.
But also that you can safely use them in the places you need. That there'll be a place where there's a sound stage for people that want to dance with music. There'll be a place for quiet. There'll be a place that's dark. There'll be a place that's for playing frisbee. You know what I mean? So there'll just be all these different options. There'll be art places for art, and it helps set up these festival-like environments. But instead of it being focused on, say, like a band or a DJ or on a circus, that the people there are the experience. And anyway, so so psychedelic safe places is my current passion right now, is to help create that, and also just get the word out there through amazing people like you who have platforms to share with about especially harm reduction also, because there's definitely ways to get hurt with any kind of medicine. And the psychedelics can hurt your mind, like not just the way you think. They can hurt the way you think about the way you think. So they can actually be very difficult for the ego, which again, ego, complicated word there. So that can be good for people sometimes, because people talk about ego death and that people want to, like, get away from their ego. But if your ego is actually surgically removed by a psychedelic knife, it can actually leave some scarring that's takes a while. And that's why sometimes the professional help, which I'm not, because I just, at this point, I'm more interested in working with people like yourself and other coaches. So I think that my experience is going to be more useful and more I think I will impact more people by me connecting with the people who are connecting with the people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a chain of command thing.
Because you are that type of person that can fill in the gaps of what modern science might not be able to explain, or what the ethnobotanist part of it, bringing that in to help us fill in all those space that we might be wondering sometimes what is going on here. That is really cool. Yeah.
I'm attempting to be like the liminal space, or the linkage, the motherboard between the traditional world and the modern world, and trying to find a way for that balance to happen.
That is where I'm seeing you. That is where the spirit, it's like we agreed right there. It's one spirit. Patrick, it's really great to have you. Where can our audience connect with you? Folks, first of all, as you are listening to this, you go to Clubhouse and go join Patrick's club, Psychedelic Universe. He is the host of Psychedelic Universe. You guys go up there on Clubhouse and following this man. He is if you know you cannot wait until the next, and we don't even know when next we're gonna be able to drag him down here. But I will make sure we bring him back, because we haven't talked about Savia, we haven't talked about freedom, we haven't talked about masculinity. We only briefly mentioned parents. Educating themselves and their children. So it's a lot we haven't even covered yet. Talk to us, David, Patrick. Where can we connect with you?
Just my name, Patrick Ironwood. I'm easy to find on pretty much all the platforms. I'm the most active on Clubhouse, is because I like to share ideas and listen to other people. Yeah. Clubhouse is amazing. It's basically just it's a chat room form, but Clubhouse is the one that I'm on by my name. And then if you just simply want to I post on Facebook by my name, Patrick Ironwood, Instagram, the same. My art studio, which is very interesting. It's called Nature of Reaction. And it's mostly not for sale. So it's really just something, it's not even, it's not really that well explained actually, but if you go to my Instagram, actually, and just scroll back through it, you'll see still shots and some little movies of the things that I do.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate you showing up for us and educating us. I have picked up so many gems. You just don't know. I'm so glad you were able to make it. Guys, that is our show today. Like I said, we're going to be putting every links about Patrick in the show notes. But in the meantime, before the show, this episode is out, you can go ahead and connect with him on social, and also connect with him on Clubhouse. I haven't said all what we have said today. This psychedelic space, these are medicine. Plant is medicine, folks. I don't want us to just go away without reminding ourselves, plant is medicine. If it's medicine, we have to treat it as such. You just like you won't go to over the counter and grab a bottle of Tylenol without talking to somebody, how do I take it and all that. The same with this. The other thing I want to call our attention to is the integration part. Just like Patrick has said, it is very, very important to have integration, and don't go alone, especially if you are new to this plant. Get with people, learn about the plant, work with a guide. Don't just do it alone, because like I say, it is medicine. I haven't said that if you feel triggered in any way out there, there is help out there. So don't do anything by yourself. Reach out to folks. Even your social media family. We are family. So don't be alone. Reach out if you need help. So for folks that are yet to join our Patreon group, please go do that. And make sure you don't just listen to this episode. Try to leave a comment. We really don't need a comment. Leave a comment and also share with your friends and loved ones. And folks, if you are out there, you're an organization, you would like to sponsor this show, Let's Talk Plant Medicine, we do need you guys to come sponsor us so that we can keep this show going. So if you're an organization and you would like to sponsor the show, reach out to us at wci-health.com. You can go on there and send us an email, or you can reach out to me directly, Lola at wci-health.com. And all this information will be in the show notes. Until next time, guys, thank you so much. Remember, healthy cause well. Bye, guys. See you guys later. Bye.